I made a pretty bold statement at the outset based on Axio's findings that there's a lot going wrong in workplace communication today. And one of the drivers for that is because the expectations of employees, stakeholders, and customers have shifted pretty significantly. And some leaders haven't kept up. For example, one of the findings from the study I referenced earlier pointed to a pretty significant disconnect between leaders' perceptions and employees' perceptions of workplace communication. So, for instance, 77% of the leaders surveyed felt that the communication within their workplace was helpful and relevant, while only 46% of the employees agreed. And 78% of those same leaders felt that the communication was clear and engaging. Only 51% of the employees agreed. What's going on here, Dan? Can you talk a little bit about how expectations have shifted in, say, the last 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, this is a really important issue, Carrie, and I think we have to take a step back and look at some other numbers that really tell a compelling story. So obviously great disruption through the pandemic, and as the media has termed it, the great resignation, when we look at just the numbers of workers in 2021 and 2022 that intentionally were leaving their jobs, the number about 50 million in 2022. And even though those numbers have subsided and we feel like we've turned a corner in terms of that dynamic, now we have to explore back to this disconnect issue. And at the core of that, in my book, I talk about a foundational principle for effective leadership, which is the triad, which includes things like empowerment and accountability. But the third aspect of that is transparency. And what's really under transparency is really a path to engagement. And what's very concerning right now is that clearly we have a lot of room to improve engagement in organizations. Employees, recent Gallup poll, 59% said that they were in a state of quiet quitting. Well, what does that mean? That means I haven't physically left my organization, but I don't feel engaged. Another 18% said they were loud quitting, so I'm going to be vocal about it. And at the heart of engagement is the connection between leaders and their teams and peers. And that all involves bilateral communication, bidirectional communication, right? So this isn't just about one-way directive. This is around creating dialogue. It's about asking questions. It's about showing interest. It's about having others' backs. And that really ties back to more setting your ego aside as a leader and adopting a servant leader mindset that is really around connection, removing barriers, and literally lifting your teams up to higher levels of performance.
Well said. Well said. There's a lot there. A lot there. Mano, what do you have to add?
Yes, and all those things are true. And one just has to give it a bit of color by saying that if the world is a big place and there are an awful lot of cultures and countries where there is more of a command and control style of management still in place. So in a mixed audience, say a global town hall or a set of meetings sending the same message across the world, one has to look at how it's received through the recipient's eyes and deliver to that image. So there are cultures where a directive-led communication may still be prevalent, and maybe what we need to do is also try and bring those types of groups along to that more bidirectional, more modern way of leadership and communication.
Yeah. Excellent point. And later on, I want to get more into that, Mano, because I think one of the things that's incredibly nuanced and pretty complex is, as a leader who's responsible for connecting with and engaging a very diverse, culturally diverse team. How do you do that effectively when you're in a large group setting? So we'll get into that in more detail. Dan, do you think it's fair to say in general that employees are less tolerant today of leaders who are ineffective communicators?
Oh, absolutely. And, back to just the behavior that we're seeing in terms of, and the patience level is entirely different. Back when I started my corporate career in the 80s, there was more of this widespread mindset. If you were coming out of grad school, you were starting your career, there was this sense of unqualified gratitude and indebtedness to the corporation because that was going to provide you this long-term, maybe more stable, more predictable career path and growth. Today, it's turned totally upside down. The expectations of the new generation of the workforce is one around new experiences, faster pace, diversity of experience, the whole notion of job hopping, what used to be kind of a taboo in terms of what do you mean? You jumped companies in 18 months and you went on, different job. Why didn't you stay there 3-5 years? The whole time dimension, time continuum expectation has totally changed, where now it's valuable. People crave the idea of stimulus, new experiences, that more of a global perspective, more of a diverse and equitable and inclusive environment. So the bar has really been raised, not only in terms of the leadership behaviors, the level of connectiveness and empowerment and engagement, but also even up to the corporate level, where we're seeing expectations about social responsibility that 20 or 30 years ago never would have been this overriding criteria, right? Or blocker in terms of being able to attract new talent. So we've seen a total transformation, Carrie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mary, I just see you nodding your head. And I know, given your experience, you work with a lot of emerging younger leaders. Would you agree with the statement?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that our younger generations coming into the workforce are seeking also, they want inspiring leaders who are going to create a vision that they can feel aligned with. And so in that, leaders also need to be prepared to speak to things that are happening in the world that is constantly evolving. And really, since the summer of 2020, I think there is a bigger expectation that leaders have a point of view, that they are able to listen, and that they are able to synthesize what they are hearing and helping their teams make meaning of that, so that they can still be productive in hitting goals and targets, but also building community.
Yeah, absolutely. And that touches on the point you were making, Dan, about it being bilateral. And a theme we're seeing throughout is, at the heart of all of this is one's ability to genuinely connect at multiple levels. And to do that, you have to be coming at your communication from a very authentic and transparent way.